Aloha and welcome to A Course in Miracles. We're doing the workbook for students and this is lesson 104. We're continuing in the lessons that have to do with happiness and joy. I love these lessons. Today's lesson says, I seek but what belongs to me in truth. Today's idea continues with the thought that joy and peace are not but idle dreams. They are your right because of what you are. They come to you from God who cannot fail to give you what He wills. They are not welcomed gladly by a mind that has instead received the gifts it made where His belong as substitutes for them. And of course, right off the bat, here, where it's talking about the mind doesn't welcome, it sounds really weird, but that the mind would not welcome the gifts of God. But if we've already looked for other things to make us happy, like the ego promised that our individuality would make us happy. Or even more than that, the idea of specialness, that we're special. And when I do this lesson, I think about, you shouldn't have guilt, but you should approach this. It's best if you can approach this without guilt. Because there is no condemnation, there is no guilt. So if the altar of our mind has other things on it that we're looking to for happiness, this lesson is teaching us that we have to let go of those things. And one of the big ones, of course, is guilt. But another one is the special relationship, or the idea that we are special. And that's a really subtle one today, especially with, I think I have a Facebook page, and I love to post pictures on that page and videos, because I love to do photography. And the more stars I get, the more special it makes me feel. I love that when people like my music or, like the art that I've created with my camera. But that's really, when I think about it, if that's where I'm looking to find my happiness, I might find a little temporary bit of happiness and getting a bunch of likes on one of my pictures. But that whole, if I really examine it with Jesus, that whole wanting to be liked, wanting to be loved, which all of us want to be liked and loved, but we are liked and loved by God. But as individuals, as I want, comparing myself to other people, like I've got more likes than you, or that type of thinking is what the Course calls specialness. And that is one of all my life, it's been a strong draw for me. I want people to like me. I want to please them. I want them to think I'm special. And then there's the whole competition thing. I've never really been that much into competition, I tell myself. But really, when I think of it, I do, love to compete when I really look at it. Maybe not so much in sports, but just in wanting to be liked, wanting to be loved, wanting attention. And so for me, those are some of the gifts that I have to look at that and be honest with myself that those are some gifts on the altar that I'm coming to be able to, with Jesus, to let go of so that I can really find real joy and peace instead of the substitutes that I've added there. And that's what this lesson is really about. God's gifts of joy and peace are all I want. But are they really all I want, you know? And if I'm not finding that joy and peace, it's not because the Course isn't working, it's telling me exactly how to find that joy and peace. I can't look for it outside of myself because it's within me. And if I have, when the Course uses the term altar, it's talking about, think about the decision maker of your mind. So if my decision maker is choosing, you know, if I'm saying with one part of me, oh, I want God's joy and peace, but then the other part of my mind, the altar, the decision maker, has placed other things there to look to, you know, relationships, fame, material things. You know, there's all kinds of things we can put on that altar. Then that's where I'm going to try to get my happiness from. And I might have just a little bit of happiness, but it's going to always be fleeting because the ego's promises of happiness and the ego's gifts never last. And finally learning that. So let's continue. So today we would remove all the meaningless and self-made gifts which we have placed upon the holy altar where God's gifts belong. And that's exactly what I was talking about. And that's something that, you know, you may find it hard to really do that. Maybe you're in a relationship with someone and that person has become your whole world and you've given them the power to make you happy or to make you miserable, but you still don't imagine how you could live without that relationship as your source of happiness. Well, the Course and the Holy Spirit and Jesus never are calling upon us to make a sacrifice. All they ask is that we just bring those things to the truth and let Jesus show us the reality of what they are, you know, if they're illusions. So we can make another choice. Not sacrifice, but gladly, happily make another choice. And that's one of the reasons we're doing these meditations and looking inside ourselves for happiness and joy these days, because it's there. And when we find it and get in touch with it, it's so much better than anything that the ego or the world can promise us. And so it's not like, oh my gosh, I've got to give this up or give that up. Heck no, it's like, whoa, this is so much brighter and more beautiful than what I thought was giving me joy and happiness and peace. That we find ourselves just in love with the things of the Spirit, and we just begin to forget about all those, like a dream, forget about all those things that we used to think were so amazing. His gifts, God's gifts, are the gifts, God's are the gifts that are our own in truth. His are the gifts that we inherited before time was, and that we will still be ours when time has passed into eternity. His are the gifts that are within us now, for they are timeless. And we need not wait to have them. They belong to us today. Almost all the religions of the world are based on you suffer now and then you'll be rewarded, like later on, often in the next life. If you will be faithful now, then God will reward you when you go to heaven. But the Course isn't like that at all. The Course is that today, right now, this is ours. This is our inheritance. We can have it. We can have peace and joy today. We don't have to wait for heaven. Heaven is right here. All we have to do is accept it, receive it. So that is one of the differences in the philosophy of A Course in Miracles as opposed to many of the religious traditions and philosophies that many of us may have grown up in. Some of us may not have grown up in a religious tradition at all. That's getting more and more common today because many children are growing up and their parents have already given up on faith traditions, and so they're raised without that. And you may be one of those people. So they belong to us today. Therefore, we choose to have them now, today. We choose to have them now and know in choosing them in place of what we made, we but unite our will with what God wills and recognize the same as being one. Our will for happiness and God's will for happiness are one. Our longer practice periods today, the hourly 5 minutes, given truth for your salvation, should begin with this: I seek but what belongs to me in truth, and joy and peace are my inheritance. So that's how we're going to begin the 5 minutes each hour. And then we're going to lay aside the conflicts of the world that offer other gifts and other goals made of illusions, witnessed to by them and sought for only in a world of dreams. We're going to lay those aside. And as we lay them aside, we're going to seek instead that which is truly ours. And as we ask to recognize we're going to ask to recognize what God has given us. We clear a holy place within our minds before His altar. So that's what today is about. Clearing a holy place within our minds. And the altar is our mind, where His gifts of peace and joy are welcome, and to which we come to find what has given us by Him, by God, by the Spirit. We come in confidence today, all the confidence that we can come with, aware that what belongs to us in truth is what He's going to give us today. And we would wish for nothing else, for nothing else belongs to us in truth. So, do we clear the way for Him today by simply recognizing that His will is done already? already. You don't have to wait. It's already done. And that joy and peace belong to us as His eternal gifts. We will not let ourselves lose sight of them between the times we come to seek for them, where He has laid them. This reminder we will bring it to mind as often as we can. As often as we can, we're going to remind ourselves that today I seek but what belongs to me in truth, God's gifts of joy and peace are all I want. So have a day filled with joy and peace, my friends, and aloha to you, love to you, peace to you, joy to you, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you for spending this time with me.